Hello everyone, my name is Wes McCauley. I am a member of the Fraser Valley Mountain Bike Association and I'm a board member there. Do a lot of riding, enduro style out here in the Fraser Valley. And I just wanted to give a user's review of Loam Goat brake pads. Now my bike is a Norco range. I've got SRAM code brakes front and back, and I have used a number of different brake pads through the years. And so Loam Goat is a company out of North Vancouver. So they sell a set of their sintered pads. They just come in a simple envelope. They get mailed to you, 35 bucks for a pair, and you get their sintered pads. So I've got two sets here that I'm going to put on today. And so I just want to talk about some of the advantages of pads, of their pads. I don't see any disadvantages. Maybe just one during installation, but we'll walk through that. Okay, so I've also got a set of OEM SRAM sintered pads here, just for reference on the bed material thickness. Now, one of the things that's really great about the Loam Goat pads is the thickness of the bedding material. There's more bedding material on their pads than most of the other pads that I've purchased in the past. So here, let me just give you some hard numbers here. So we've got the SRAM sintered pad here, and of course the backing plate, just using some vernier calipers here, is 2 millimeters thick. And so if we look at the total thickness of the pad, it is about 3.8 millimeters. So 3.8 millimeters, so that's about 1.8 millimeters of bedding material with a 2 millimeter backing plate. Okay, so here's one of the Loam Goat sintered pads here, nice and fresh and new. And for the backing plate, it'll be very likely 2 millimeters like the OEM, and indeed they are. Now when we get to measuring the thickness of the bedding material here, so it's 4 millimeters total, so maybe a little bit more, 4.1. And so what that means is, instead of having the 1.8 millimeters of bedding material like you get with the OEM, here you're getting a full maybe 2.1 millimeters of bedding material with the Loam Goat pads. Now, in terms of their power and modulation and their noise, I have found their power to be as good as SRAM, maybe a little better, just talking qualitatively here. Modulation, also excellent. Slightly quieter than SRAM, less prone to squeak. And I've got a set here of my old ones, which I'm just about to take out. So this is my pads, which I bought a little more than a year ago. And they've still got a fair amount of pad life on them here. These are my rear pads, so they're worn a little bit more. So I have 3.5. So I'm down to about 1.5 millimeters of pad material left. So usually by the time you get down to that range, maybe a little bit less, you should replace your pads anyway. And I was getting a little bit of a ridge on the top here of the pad, just where it goes beyond the edge of the rotor. So these have been great. The integrity of the pad is good. So if you look at the pad, there's no parts that have broken out. There hasn't been any failure of the bedding material on the pad. So that's really good, because I'm 200 pounds, and when you're going down some gnarly trails, the last thing you want is bits of your pad material to pull out. So next thing we'll look at here is just putting the pads into the calipers, and just a little bit about what you might have to do to get them to fit. Okay folks, so now we're looking up into the caliper. So there's my fender in the background, so you can ignore it. And what you can see here is that the calipers are not fully retracted. And this, especially since these new pads are a little bit thicker than the OEM, and they're certainly a lot thicker than what's on there right now, just with wear, those calipers are going to need to be fully retracted. So to help me do that, I'm going to put the old pads back in. Let's get them into the calipers here. So now what I'm going to do here is just get a little slot screwdriver, and I'm just going to gently apply pressure, just torquing it a little bit to get those calipers to retract fully. So if I just patient here, just wait a few seconds, I'll get those calipers to retract. Okay folks, so you can see that after just a few seconds here, just some constant pressure there pushing back on the pads, I've got a great big gap in there so I can get the new pads in. Okay, so there go the pads, ready to go, ready for me to reinstall the wheel. Okay, so I've got the rear brake pads installed and they're running freely, so they're not dragging on the rotor at all. So just checking my front pads, and I realized that I had rotated my backs to the fronts. So I've got those pads here. So again, it's just over a year of usage, and these are down to about 3.4 total. So that's about 1.4 millimeters of bedding material left. So these were a little bit lower, and I believe it's at 1.5 millimeters of bedding material where you are supposed to replace your pads. So these ones, which were my rear pads, were definitely ready to be replaced. All right, so those are my thoughts on Loam Goat pads. I've had them for about 3 years now. This is my third set of pads from Loam Goat that I've got. I've got them on my wife's e-bike and a few other bikes here in the garage. Highly recommend the product, and like I said, you get 2 pairs actually for 35 bucks. So you get your front and your rears done, which is about half the price of the SRAM and brakes as well. They sell pads for Shimano, and I think for some of the other brake brands out there. Check out their website, loamgoat.ca.